Hi guys. Okay, as I promised that I would give you all the story of depression, about how it feels like, what people do when they are depressed, and every little bit detail of it. Although I'm not a depression patient, so I had no rights to actually tell you all any story about it. But one of my friend, he had been in depression from 2011 to 2016. That is 5 years, and hats off to him that he has overcome it right now. And we are very lucky to have him here because he is the one who is going to be telling you all his personal story about what he felt, how it started, and few questions that he answers. And let's hope that when you all see this video, you all don't pity anyone, you all don't feel bad about anything, but you all remember that mental illness is very serious. It is felt by everyone, whether it's a guy, whether it's a girl, whether it's any gender. It doesn't matter. Mental illness is there. Just like how we go to a doctor normally because we are sick, we can be sick mentally also, not just physically. So please remember whatever he is speaking right now after this, please do not take it negatively, but take it in a way that you guys will know where to be precautious, what to do. So let's get right into it.
In my case, it started off with me thinking that I'm not able to concentrate and maybe I'm distracted or I have a short attention span for some reason all of a sudden. Also thought it was probably due to the seasons because it was my first time in the US, January to March, and January to March, and we had a lot of snow. So for anyone who's not lived 3 months in the snow, just imagine all the colors you can see outside, and all of that disappears, and all you can see is white. Probably not something you're used to when you come from tropical Mumbai. So that's what I thought initially exacerbated it, but what led to it increasing is again this whole vicious cycle that you get into. If you're when you're suffering through something, you don't perform normal tasks at that efficiency, and then because of that, you start feeling worse, and then there's the whole psychological aspect of it that comes up where you start thinking you're not worth it and you're not good enough, and you keep wondering what's happened to you. People say you feel numb, which I would agree with, but you also don't feel any emotion. If you were to tell me in those episodes that someone died or something happened, blank face. You don't know how to react. You don't know why you're reacting that way without having any sort of emotion with you. I don't think that's how humans are supposed to function, without emotions. So emotions keep us healthy, and the lack of emotions is probably very, very harmful for someone. Not just over time, but even at any point of time in your life. It's hard to explain to someone who's not been through it. That's the best analogy I can give you. It started in December 2012. That's what I think triggered it. There was a time where that was a time where I came home for vacations from the US. I was studying over there, engineering, and after coming here, I had a severe case of food poisoning, and that led to hospitalization, intense dehydration, temporary paralysis as well. And as a result of that, I guess I went through a lot of physical trauma, which probably would have triggered this mental trauma episode of depression. You hear about things like postpartum depression that women go through. So maybe that's that the physical trauma of that entire experience was the reason for me to go through all this. But again, there's not been able to really nail down a cause. I do know what led it to increase though. Once I realized it was depression, it was a constant downward spiral of not being able to perform in terms of academics, in terms of social life, which led to me feeling even worse, which led to me not performing, which led to me feeling even worse, and became a vicious spiral. So, ironically, what happened was that my parents did take me to the hospital and get me diagnosed and everything. But they were the ones in denial, actually, and then they chose not to accept it. They told me it's a frame of mind, or they said there must be some other reason. I procrastinated. I That's the reason I failed in my classes, or rather, almost failed. But that was the reaction of my parents. You know, as for people, my ironically, my friends were much more supportive, much more understanding and accommodating. I think accommodating is how people should be when they hear. People need to understand that there are experiences, no matter how older you are compared to your son, daughter, whoever, how experienced you are. There are things in this world you do not know, and I keep pricking you 24/7. There's going to be a limit by what time you will get irritable. Then, after getting irritable, you'll go beyond, you probably get violent. If you don't want to get violent, you'll isolate yourself from other people. And if it's too much to take in, you will want to find any way to escape. And if the only way to escape is death, so be it. It's easy to say it gets better or not, but then uh, I mean, I can say that when you have survived through 4 years of living through something which where every second, every waking second, when uh, when it feels like something's going wrong with you, and you feel like you're in pain, mm, it doesn't really help when you say that it gets better, unfortunately. And you know, uh, I mean that's how it is. That's the truth we have to accept. That no matter how you try to rationalize it, you don't understand suicide is going to be a rational decision for someone who is in that place. Why would you want to suffer when you have a choice not to suffer? You know, and as to people who don't understand why people think suicide is an escape. There's this interesting quote I had read. Suicide isn't done by people to because they want to embrace death. They want the pain to end, and that's the core truth. That's what's behind suicide. So if you uh, let's have a thought experiment. Let's say I tied you to an electric chair and I flicked it on, and it gave you a non-lethal current, which shocked you. And then I turned it off, and then I turned it on again and turned it off, and this kept going. And then suddenly one day, I turned on the current, and I just didn't turn it off, and I left. How long do you think you would stay? It doesn't kill you. The current doesn't kill you, but how long do you think you would survive uh, before you say the words, or before you beg anyone in the room to give you a swift death? Yeah, you probably heard this in books or seen it in movies. People begging for death. The villain usually says, "I will make you beg for death." Uh, that's the whole thing. That life is that painful for you. Uh, Anyone can be driven to death. Anyone can be driven to suicide. Didn't. I did seek professional help, obviously, but also non-professional help. I used to visit these forums, which later got closed because of lack of funding. They were managed in the US. They were a US website, so that was where people could come talk about uh, you know, depression, bipolar disorder, anxiety, schizophrenia, any kind of mental health issues that they're struggling with. And apart from that, I mean, I did try to uh, tell it to my friends, try to use them as a support system. But then once I realized what this was, what kind of path I was going on, I deliberately also ended up breaking a lot of connections, good ones, in fact. Uh, so all my friends there ended up pushing them away, so we lost contact, and I chose not to contact them because I didn't want to pass what I had on to them, the negative energy, I guess. Primary help with help of a psychiatrist or medical intervention or psychological intervention, which is also medical in some sense, is important. So for me, professional help was did make a difference. The professionals obviously know what you are dealing with. They're not like family or maybe like friends or any sort of non-professional who knows everything about your life, your world, and all that. Then they know that what you're going through is not normal. It's not a phase. It needs medical intervention if possible, uh, and it is necessary. So I actually liked. I mean, I was open to going to professionals. I've consulted in my entire phase of depression. I've consulted maybe three psychiatrists, two psychologists. The reasons for changing them were because one of the like I was in the US at the time, so we would do Skype sessions, and it wasn't really good enough. It was cumbersome to do it over video call. Unfortunately, there's no, probably you've noticed it during the lockdown as well. There's no human connection, even though there's a human talking to you. That's why physical interaction is important. Keep your triggers aside. How long can it take? That shouldn't really, we shouldn't really be posting that as a question. I feel it's more like what can we do for someone. For example, you don't really, although we'd like to know when we can get better, we don't really say, or how long will it take for me to get rid of I don't know, diabetes, cancer, any sort of disease. Nobody knows, but that doesn't mean that there's no hope. You know, getting treatment, getting help is much better than going in blind. That is assured. That I can assure you any day. And expanding your support circle, having a support circle in the first place is what's important. To be honest, I'm not completely out of it. I'm still on medication, and I'm doing things that add value to my life. So, medication, especially, I know is keeping me going. If for some reason, the pills I take cost like 30 rupees a pill, and they are very easily available. If anything, if at all, in the future, the the price would increase and I couldn't afford it because I'm poor, or uh, the supply, they stop supplying those pills or making that medication. If it was banned, probably I'd go back to, or close to where I was. I do have triggers. If I see photos of my old university and the place where I used to live, and sorry, other remembrances, if I think back to those specific instances at my lowest points, I might, relapse into it. But that's where, I since how I what I talked about, where you need to understand your triggers and keep them away from it. Relapses can happen if you're not regular with medication, with what your counselor says or your doctor says. You don't visit them for therapy, and therapy is not just they don't just talk. There are various forms of therapy. If you want to look up online, there's um, I think one of them is cognitive behavior therapy, and then there are other kinds of therapies that they actually do. It's not just letting your feelings out. People think that depression happens because people don't speak, people don't express. Not necessarily. It's way more complicated. Understand the behaviors that are leading you to be triggered, and keep those triggers away, no matter how important uh, they may be. If it's the place, relocate if you can. If it's a certain person, let them know, I'm sorry, but you know this is how it is, because your health is important. At that moment, nothing else really matters, because if you aren't around to enjoy it, what's the point? The precaution that I would take is to listen to your psychiatrist. Don't self-medicate. Do not assume that you know better than someone. If you have a problem, you think your psychiatrist is not being cooperative, uh, get maybe change some into someone who's better able to explain to you why something is a bad issue. Like, people tend to say, oh, you know what, I'll just take sleeping pills, and or I'll take sedatives maybe. um, Probably not a good idea. It's probably what how you end up with a drug overdose if you're not careful. There's a reason why people go through medical school for so many years. um, but other precautions, I guess, are you know there's a tendency that normal people tend to have, where when something sad happens, you just do things that make you more sad. Listen to sad songs, or something like that. What I end up doing is, now that I know where this leads me, and I've seen probably the depths of hell, if you want to call it. Uh, I know certain behavioral triggers. I know certain red flags. What can happen. So that's what I avoid. Uh, Although it may not be your tendency, you might want to sulk. You might want to be sad. Uh, Baby steps. You need to take baby steps to put those aside. For people suffering, one advice is, before you take any drastic step, maybe try all your options. Because I mean, when I was back there, I probably didn't call a couple of people, or uh, you know, probably didn't do certain things, which maybe you don't know, somebody from out of the blue could come and help me. If that didn't work, it would have probably been a bit more understandable that I would have killed myself. But think of it this way. I mean, you have nothing to lose if you're at that point. Or even if you're depressed, you're not at suicidal, but you're still depressed. Why not? Why not just try? Why not just try different things? And I know that it's not easy. I've been at that point, so we need to build an ecosystem. You will be surprised how many people care after you're died. After you're died, I'm pretty sure you've seen this whole thing with Sushant Singh Rajput, unfortunate guy. Uh, but then again, if you tell someone you're going to kill yourself, or anything, maybe now is a better time to for people to come and help you than it was in 2012, or even before that maybe. So just reach out. And I mean, if nothing works, I totally understand why people go to that drastic measures. So I'm not really going to judge them or even say anything at that point, but just try, hang in there, is all I can say. To the people who want to help genuinely, uh, first thing, you need to ask yourself is, can I listen? Anyone can talk. Can you listen? Is the thing. And after listening, can you accept that, if this is completely new to you, that there are things in this world that you don't understand, but these are somebody's experiences. So maybe they are not lying, maybe they are not, doing this for attention. Because think about it, you assume that they're doing this for attention or whatever, and then they end up killing themselves. How do you feel? I mean, even if nobody blames you for that, the guilt is on you, right? You would feel guilty. Or maybe I'd done something, maybe I'd done this, maybe I'd done that. So, prevention is better than cure. Be a part of the solution, you know. And if you want to educate yourself, I mean, nowadays it's almost inexcusable that someone's uneducated about certain things. One, like if you heard the word depression, there's Google, there's YouTube. Go search. I mean, this was still a pretty foreign concept to many Indians in 2012. We didn't have that big of an information age back then as we have now, but now you do. So do that. Go ahead and do that.